And we are back live here on the Cowboys Report, a little bit earlier than usual, as we will be traveling to the NFL Combine later this afternoon. So, going to squeeze in a quick Cowboys Live because it's fun and I care about it. Myself, Stone Shields, behind the scenes on today's show. Let's get to a $5 super chat from Ryan Huffman. If Dallas chooses to go offensive line at 12, what about Kelvin Banks or Tyler Booker? That's the Texas offensive tackle, the Bama offensive guard. Banks could allow Guyton to move to left guard, or Booker could replace Martin. So I think if you're taking Booker, he's your new right guard. That's pretty straightforward. I think he's a very good player, instant starter. He's not going to be 12 on my board. It'll be lower, so value concerns for me there. I also don't think I ever want to play Guyton at guard. He's like almost 6'8". I think that's just too tall for a guard. I don't think his play style fits that great at guard. I don't like his fit there. So I think if you're drafting Banks, who I would play at tackle first, because I think some of his issues, especially in the run game, are actually more mitigated at tackle than they are at guard. I would probably go put Banks at right tackle or right guard and move on from Terrence Steele. Or I guess you could put Guyton on the right side too. I'm not going to try Guyton at guard. I don't think he's a fit there. And I also kind of don't want to play Banks at guard either. It's kind of one of my concerns. I think he's a really good pass protector. I have issues with some of his power and sustain in the run game. I think that gets amplified at guard to me. Now, the pin poll on today's show, some of the news we'll discuss, is will Dallas re-sign Osa Odighizuwa? Why for yes and for no? We'll break down a lot of noteworthy comments made by Stephen Jones to David Moore of the Dallas Morning News. In fact, it was so much news, we put it into 2 videos instead of just the one, because it would have been wouldn't have been fair to gloss over some of the stuff that he mentioned. I really want to get into it. So will Dallas re-sign Osa Odighizuwa? Why for yes and for no? You can let me know in the comment section of today's video. 61% say yes, which is higher than what it was the last time we asked this question. I do think there are real question marks about if the Cowboys will be able to get that done. At least publicly, they are saying all the right things so far, which in the end, I would argue is progress for the Cowboys. I have to see it. I don't trust them yet. And I think a lot of us do not trust them at this time. So will Dallas re-sign Osa Odighizuwa? Why for yes and for no? Get those votes. We'll get some shout-outs here as well. Fred says yes. I agree with Landlord that Osa needs more sacks. I agree. I also think that, in general, sacks can be a little bit inconsistent from year to year unless you're like a Micah Parsons-esque player. The pressure rate numbers, which matter a lot, I think are indicative of a player who is going to be primed for more sacks as we move forward. I think is an impactful pass rusher. But the concern is completely valid because, in theory, the pressure numbers get better. It's not always the case. I mean, you can look at guys like Jadeveon Clowney, for example, always had super high pressure numbers. Never ended up being the finisher that they needed in the end. So I get the concerns there. And at the money involved, there is very real risk both ways, frankly. Fred says yes. Munoz says no. Marquise says yes. John says yes. Kenya, Danelle say no. Hank says yes. Tommy says tag Osa. We will discuss that here in a little bit. I don't love the franchise tag idea. So what is your confidence level just overall in the Jones boys this offseason? To be more aggressive, to make the moves that we all desperately want them to make, or at least some of the moves we want them to make. 1 to 10 is your scale. If the numbers are low, I get it. The confidence meter has certainly plummeted, and I think the overall just trust track record has fallen a little bit as well. Like you're running out of reasons to have some more blind faith. So let me know. 1 to 10 is your scale in the comment section of today's show. 1, 5, 0, 5, 2.5, 3, 1, 1, 1, 3, 5, 2.5, 5, 3.5, 4. It's low numbers, and I get that. I agree. How can you? It's tough to have confidence in them right now because they haven't given you reason to have confidence. Just blind faith doesn't work the way it used to in the end. We will also discuss Rico Dowdle, among one of the several players that Stephen Jones, a.k.a. Catboy, mentioned Do you want Rico Dowdle back? K for keep or L for you'd like to let him leave? I am down to bring back Rico. I don't think he'll be that expensive. I think, in general, it's not a very good free agency market. That will kind of boost the value to an extent. Like, Dowdle's one of the more productive backs based on last season, hitting the open market. But it's also such a strong draft class that I think it's going to drive down back the market. And remember, Dowdle was a free agent last year. There was zero interest in him from outside of the Cowboys organization. Zero. No one had really picked up the phone. That's why his guaranteed money was so low. And NFL teams are creatures of habits. They don't often drastically change their opinions, and I think it'll be a bit of a deflated market in the end from Dowdle. So I'd like to bring him back and then still draft somebody too, because I don't think Dowdle's going to be crazy expensive. I think you can use him as kind of more of your thunder and go find a lightning option. Go find an explosive player to kind of boost your backfield. So get those votes in at K for keep, L for let leave. From Cameron Edelson, a $5 super chat. What would be your best guess with the hesitation to re-sign big players like Parsons? Is it classic front office being cheap or a different reason? I don't know if it's so much hesitation. I almost wonder if it's more just, I don't want to say laziness, but maybe hesitation is a good word for it because they haven't done it yet. I think part of it is this is an organization that wants to win the deal. That they always try to get the best value possible on their players, and when you're at this level of the market, when players say no, when Tank Lawrence says no, when CeeDee Lamb says no, when Micah Parsons says no, way back when Dez Bryant said no, when all those guys say no initially, then the Cowboys go, okay, well, we'll just wait. And the end result is they end up paying more. So I think it's, cheap front office and just poorly run contractual front office stuff. And I think to an extent they like the attention, not paying Lamb allowed them to have an excuse to not spend money in free agency and allowed them to, not get attention the entire time. And they'll probably do it a little bit with Micah. I like to believe that they learned their lesson, that they don't have any, they think, okay, we know we got to pay this guy early. And Micah has been so vocal about not wanting to wait. I think that ends up being a positive thing. I hope. But it is hope at this point. So I think they'll pay Parsons eventually. I just want it to be in 2 weeks from now and not in August. That's what I want. As you pay Micah, you free up more money in free agency, you can go do more stuff. That's what we all want. Now, if you are ready for us to start today's live edition of the Cowboys Report, help us out by liking today's show. We have you covered with all the latest on the Dallas Cowboys. It's free, simple, and easy to do, so please and thank you. Like today's show. Coming up live, we'll break down a bunch of Cowboys news. Actually, two versions of it, really. First and last segments of today's show will hit a lot of key comments made by Stephen Jones to David Moore of the Dallas Morning News, and a mailbag as well. Now, I will make note the mailbag will go out post-combine, so I'll probably be kind of careful with my wording, and I'll acknowledge that, too, in the mailbag. But we're going to have one off this week at Sunday, so I'm going to put the mailbag out on Sunday. Hit that sub button, and remember to like the video as well as we break down the entirety of this live Cowboys Report. We've got a lot to discuss from Stephen Jones's comments and conversation with David Moore of the Dallas Morning News. Multiple key updates on a variety of players on the Cowboys offseason. So much so, we're going to split this video into two, frankly. Today, I want to focus on Osa Odighizuwa and the contract talks that are apparently already underway between Osa and the Dallas Cowboys, the current outlook of Micah Parsons, the latest on returns for both Rico Dowdle and Jourdan Lewis. As mentioned, tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, we'll have the additional comments made by Stephen Jones. There's just a lot to get into. I want to give each of it its own due time. So hit that sub button if you haven't already. First off, thank you to getting us to 209,000 subscribers. 210K is the next number there. We will have Combine coverage for you as well. We will be at Indianapolis or in Indianapolis at the Combine. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. Let's begin with this. The contract talks with Osa Odighizuwa have begun per Stephen Jones. Now, the nitty-gritty of how far along those are, what the results are, I don't know. We'll see. Stephen Jones had this to say. We have had negotiations with Osa. I just think Osa is a really good football player. He is an important piece. As we've discussed previously, any Osa contract is going to be a tricky one. With a not great free agency crop, and with the way the defensive tackle market exploded last offseason, that's not an easy deal to figure out the proper value. Now, Steven in general did leave the door open for a tag. Now, when you look at the money, Osa is the only one that makes any sense. They're not going to tag Rico at 13. They're not going to tag any of the linebackers like 24. The Lewis is like at 20. It doesn't make any sense. They're not going to use the tag on anyone but Osa. And in the end, it's probably too expensive. The franchise tag is $24 million. I don't foresee him getting $24 million on the open market. That just seems highly unlikely. The Trenches tag is more in line with the per year value, but it's still 19.42. That's still a lot of money. And you don't get comp picks if you let him leave in free agency. You get the chance to match or not. And that's, I just don't buy it. I would be surprised if the tag got used, even the transition tag. I think it is more likely they will probably know post-combine if he's back or not. With that said, an extension would also be very expensive. And there are very real pros and cons to paying Osa. You're in dire straits along your defensive line without him. And also it's super expensive for a guy that didn't have that much sack production this past season. So I get both sides. This is where your pro personnel department and your self-scouting has to be good. So will Dallas end up re-signing Osa Odighizuwa? Y for yes, N for no. It is the pinned comment on today's video. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. The highest paid defensive tackle list has really exploded. You know, Nnamdi Madubuike got $24.5 million last year. Christian Wilkins, who really had 1 year of high-end quality sack production, had a massive season. Nnamdi went from 5.5 to 13 to 6.5 the past 3 seasons. Quinnen Williams, Jeffrey Simmons, Buckner, Payne, Lawrence, all getting more than $21.5 million. Leonard Williams, we got to go to top 20 here, because there are 20-plus different defensive linemen who make at least $15 million per year. And some of those were a long time ago. The Grady Jarrett deal, the Jonathan Allen deal. You know, I have a tough time seeing Osa not at least getting $15 million per year on the open market. And there's kind of that little gap between Christian Barmore and Allen, where there's kind of a bit of a tier break between that, 21 to 18. And the Seahawks used Draymond Jones as like an outside linebacker. It didn't make any sense to me, his usage with what he's been previously. He's a 3 technique to me. Hargrave's going to get cut, but there's money there. Interior pass rush depth is valuable. It's paid out. You get big money for being good at that. And in the end, whatever the decision is on Osa Odighizuwa, I think there's sizable risk involved for the Cowboys, no matter what way they end up playing this. Now, on one hand, he hasn't had great production over the course of his career. I don't think he's ever going to be an elite run stopper, and that's fine. I think he's going to be more of a disruptive 3 technique. And he was disruptive this year. The pressure numbers were really good. Led the NFL in quarterback hits, was top 10 in pressures from DT. That's really impactful. 4.5 sacks, you want more than that. But the overall tape, what we've seen over the course of Osa's career, and unlike previous years, was actually better in the second half than the first half of a season. That guy's got value at a position that historically doesn't have instant impacts. It takes a little bit there. But that's a lot of money to pay him for that amount. And you have no depth behind him. If you lose Osa, you got Mozzie Smith. So you got to get 3 new defensive linemen in there probably. Even if you pay Osa, I kind of want to sign one and draft one still. That's dicey. So I don't have a great answer. I think there are pros and cons on both sides of this here, but they got to get this decision right. If they mess up the Osa call, it's going to really hurt the Dallas Cowboys defense. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You come to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. It is the best place to get in on the action in sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. They also invented the Flex Play, which means if you get one wrong, you can still cash out. I am all in on the Luka Doncic revenge game more than everything. I think he's going to light up the Mavs. He had a good game last week. Good game again this coming week there. I think Kyrie will have some success against maybe shaky Lakers defense. And LeBron might take a bit of a back seat in this one and let Luka cook to an extent. So, download the Prize Picks app today over at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after that first $5 lineup is played. Now, on the heels of the Osa conversation, Micah Parsons. Contract talks have not started, but Stephen Jones said they'd get underway soon. Maybe the Combine, maybe after. I hope it's at the Combine. Let's not be silly here. Let's prioritize this one. Because a smart NFL organization does everything in its power to get the Parsons deal done before free agency. That is what a smart NFL organization does. Are the Cowboys a smart organization? I don't know. I have to see it, right? The Cowboys do seem to have more urgency in general than last year. Starting stuff with Osa, not waiting until the Combine fully. I'm sure they'll have more talks at the Combine. I saw people mad like, oh, why are you prioritizing Osa versus Micah? You probably want to get it. You know what the Micah deal is going to look like. You probably want to get a better feel for what the Osa deal will truly look like. And technically speaking, the Osa contract expires first. So I'm fine actually talking to Osa first, as long as you also talk to Micah. I don't really care what order you're writing the checks in, so to speak, to pay your bills, as another analogy. You want to pay the water bill first before you pay the mortgage? Whatever. If the mortgage is due 2 weeks later, that's fine. As long as you also pay the mortgage on time, right? In the end, I need to see results from this team when it comes to their moves in the offseason, free agency in particular, before I believe them, before I trust them. And it's not just lip service of, we're going to get that Micah deal done. We're going to try to get that Osa deal done. I have to see it. They should do some stuff this week because it's not a great free agency class in general. Pay your guys you want to pay. What do you think is the percent chance the Cowboys actually pay Micah Parsons before free agency, like a forward-thinking organization would? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Let's talk Rico Dowdle here as well. Stephen Jones expressed interest again in the Cowboys re-signing Rico this offseason, which I have no real complaints about. Stephen saying, quote, Rico had a great year. He got most of his yards in half of a season once we got back committed to the run. I'm a big fan of Rico's. Again, I was impressed by Rico Dowdle down the stretch this year. I thought he had a far more success than even as someone who was like, I think, preseason, like, he is your best back by far. It's not even much of a conversation compared to Zeke. He was better than I thought he was going to be. Now, just Rico is not enough. He's a free agent. The other guys are Deuce Vaughn, Hunter Lipke, and Malik Davis. Those guys are not enough in the backfield. Period. Full stop. Even if you re-sign Rico, which I'm down to do, you need to draft somebody else probably before that third round ends, because I don't want to get burned like I did last year with no fourth round pick again. I would like an explosive back. Ideally Travion Henderson. Like if I thought he gets to the third, but that'd be like the dream, the impossible scenario. Where it's just like, we got this explosive, crazy, fast back to pair with Rico Dowdle. Keep their touches down low. That's good to me. So do you want Rico Dowdle back? Type in K for keep, L for you allow him to leave. Go vote in the comments of today's show. For me, an ideal move is to re-sign Rico fairly cheaply. It is a not great free agency crop. That probably boosts the value. But it's such a strong draft crop, it probably pushes the value back down and deflates it a little bit. If I can get him for the Antonio Gibson, maybe adjusted for salary cap rise contract, I'm all in on that. And then I'm also going to draft a back. I'll spend, if Genty's there in round 1 or in round 2, round 3, depending on how I feel my other needs. If I can add another back to have a committee, an impactful committee, I like that idea. And ideally, that back's got some juice. To get to the outside, to do some more outside zone stuff, to have some of the explosive ability. That Rico's not a bad runner by any means, but he's not a burner, Getting some juice there, I think, would be ideal to me. Let's talk Jourdan Lewis then. The Cowboys and Stephen Jones, again, they want to bring him back this offseason, which I love. That's what I want to do, too. Here's what Stephen said. We're interested, obviously. Definitely in J. Lou. He's our starting nickel. We're interested in getting him back. Now, I don't have the context for some of the lead-in questions, I almost wonder if David Moore asked Steven, what are there players you want to bring back in particular? And I wonder if he went to J. Lou and Rico Dowdle, which is what I would do too. I thought Lewis was awesome this year. I thought he was good against the run. I thought he was good in coverage. He brings some physicality that team doesn't have. And as a nickel corner, he's not going to be overly expensive. I would be shocked if that deal ballooned anywhere near above $10 million. I don't see that happening, especially given the fact that, again, there wasn't much interest in him last year. I think he's a bit undervalued, frankly. And if I bring back Jourdan Lewis, you feel better about your cornerback room. We'll see about Trayvon Diggs long term. I have questions there. Deron Bland, I would like to pay long term. Maybe you pay Bland as the Diggs book potentially comes off the books. We'll see. And then you keep Lewis, try to develop Kalen Carson, and then you're fine. At least top end of the quarterback depth chart. And you can still probably add maybe a cheap vet or draft someone again too if the value ends up being right. It is mailbag time here on the Cowboys Report. There are two ways to get in on the show, like Ryan Huffman did with that super chat as part of the mailbag, his second super chat of the day. Thank you very much, Ryan. We'll hit that super chat, and then you can also just get him in via #Cowboys. Handful of super things to get to as well, but that's the majority of the conversation for today's show. So get him in, #Cowboys, or skip the line altogether to super chat. Let me sip some water here. So get him in, #Cowboys or super chat for the upcoming mailbag. Before we get into today's mailbag, do you want us to do the fan-led NFL mock draft again this year? Always a fan favorite, so to speak. If you want that, type me in the comments section of today's show. From Stephen Goltz, will there be any players going to the UFL? Some could use the game experience. It's a good question. I think there is a stigma still of you go to the UFL if you're not good enough to make it in the NFL. I think that will deter some players. In particular, if I were Trey Lance, I would go to the UFL. He needs reps more than maybe any of the notable free agents for this Dallas Cowboys team. He could potentially dominate at that level and then try to get a decent money, get some investment, get some interest going in yourself after the draft. That's what I would do if I were Lance, because I don't know how good his market is going to be. From MJ Jefferson, a.k.a. Jesus King, what if we trade our first this year and a second next year in Mozzie for Myles Garrett? I don't think you're that far off on the value. I do think the Browns would start and end combos with two ones. I don't know if a second next year kind of is like a third-round pick this year from a value perspective, given probably where the Cowboys should be drafting next year too. I don't think Mozzie's got immense trade value. That's probably like day 3-ish pick at best value. So it's creative to put Mozzie in there. I also then have a gaping hole at defensive line. I've got no players under contract that are passable. That's kind of a huge concern for me. If you didn't have Micah Parsons, I think I'd be very interested in this. But because you have Micah, maybe you invest your assets elsewhere. But it'd be fun. Make no mistake about that. And these have come in via Super Thanks, a feature here on YouTube. Can donate outside of live videos. Edit your message, send it in. We will give you a shout-out here on the Cowboys Report because we appreciate your support. Didn't mean to rhyme. That was on me. The Prodigal Heel. Cowboys trade back, scoop an extra second to land Gray Zabel at center. That is the North Dakota State offensive lineman. Shore up the center of the offensive line. Add Henderson in round 2, the Ohio State back. Pick up Arians Smith out of Georgia in rounds 2 to 4, so Burden's kind of a reach. This is in reference to some draft conversation we had. With Zach Martin leaving, we may do better looking at Belton out of NC State. So Belton is a right tackle, and I don't want to put him or Terrence Steele or Guyton at guard, but depth-wise, developmental-wise, day 3, sure. No complaints about that one at all. Gray Zabel is interesting. I don't know if I want to take 2 offensive linemen. I want to take 1 each draft at minimum, but I've got depth kind of right now with Richards and in theory Bass and Hoffman and all those guys. We'll see about Nathan Thomas. Trade down, I'm always on board with there. That kind of locks up your interior of the offensive line in theory for a long time. Whether Zabel plays guard or center, you put BB at the other spot in the end. Love Henderson in round 2. That's an explosive back. I'm really intrigued by. The only main issue there really is I'm not very high on Arian Smith. He's fast, and I love speed because I don't have enough speed at wide receiver. But I need speed that can catch, and I don't think he can catch very well. I get way too many Anthony Schwartz vibes. We're filming this, by the way, before the NFL Combine, all the testing and stuff. So I would not be surprised if he is the fastest Combine time this season. He's fast. He's not good at he's still an athlete playing football, though. Now, what NFL draft prospects, in general, could be round 1, could be later, do you want the Cowboys to add? Drop those names from the pinned comments of today's show. Ryan Huffman, if we don't re-sign Osa and don't target a DT in free agency, then the DT has to be the main part of the draft. Maybe trade up for Mason Graham. I love Graham. I would be shocked if he fell to you. I don't know if I want to give up assets when I'm already down a 4th-round pick, but the process makes sense to me. If you don't re-sign Osa and you don't get a defensive tackle in free agency, you are locking yourself into one of your first 2 picks has to be a DT, and you're probably going to draft 2 or 3 defensive linemen. Because I honestly, I think it would be organizational malpractice to enter the draft picking at 12 with Mozzie Smith and like nobody else on your D-line. I just think that's such bad roster management. You're going to force yourself to reach for someone that maybe you don't have a top 10 grade on or a top 15 grade on. Now you're kind of like forcing it, and when the Cowboys force picks, especially early, that is where they get into trouble. From Michael, the closer the draft gets, the less I want Ashton Jeanty. Need more than him, especially since the Cowboys won't do a lot. I get this, I do. In general, if the Cowboys were to spend more money in free agency and address those needs and not have big question marks at defensive tackle multiple spots, edge depth, and linebacker, and corner, and offensive line, and running back, and receiver, at that point, you get a lot more people on board with taking the best player available and just drafting Jeanty at 12. But if you don't do that, you got positional value questions that kind of become a real problem there. Roger Reynolds, should the Cowboys trade Trayvon Diggs? So I think in general, there's been reporting in the past over upsetness from the Cowboys side about Diggs locking in his rehab stuff, and maybe there's some just turmoil between those 2 sides in the end. I don't think anyone's trading for him. He's due $9 million in base salary. That is fully guaranteed this year because it's guaranteed for injury. He's injured. Fully guarantees in March. He's not going to pass physical by then coming off the knee surgery. It's guaranteed. So cutting him doesn't save any money even after June 1st. I don't foresee that one happening. I don't think anyone wants an injured corner due. It's only about $10 million with bonuses too that are per game stuff. I don't think anyone wants to trade for that. So I think this year he's not going anywhere. Next year, when you maybe want to pay DaRon Bland, if you don't pay in this season, which the money really wouldn't impact you this year anyway, once the money kind of hits the books, maybe that's more up for grabs then. So will Trayvon Diggs be a Cowboy in 2026? Because I think he's here this year. I'd be pretty shocked otherwise. Why for yes and for no? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Steven GX, if the board falls where Ashton and Ted are still available, which would you take? I would probably take Ted McMillan because of the positional value. Those grades are close enough to me, even though not factoring in positional value, Jeanty would be higher outside of kickers and punters because that's just silly of me to do otherwise. Jeanty would be higher, but I think that a combination of, let's say it's Ted McMillan and a Marion Hampton or Henderson or Caleb Johnson or whatever, I think it's a better combination than Jeanty and Jack Besh or waiting till round 3 to get a receiver and taking a DT in round 2. I think you'll probably wait till round 3 and maybe Besh is there for you or Higgins or Trey Harris or whatever. I just think that's probably better combination in the end. We will have more Cowboys news and rumors for you all off season long. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Perk 30. If Jeanty doesn't fall to 12, how do you feel about Dallas trading down to 2024 and taking a Marion Hampton? It's probably the range where he starts to make some sense for you. I love team trade down. I think I would have a pretty long list of guys I would consider at that spot. Multiple different defensive linemen, multiple receivers, probably some offensive linemen. A linebacker like Jihad Campbell could make some sense in that range too even. Maybe I'm a big fan of Barron at Texas. We'll see if the NFL is high on him and me or if it's a Brian Branch situation all over again. I don't, maybe a touch early for Hampton, but not by a lot. And I think it's just depending on how the board falls. But I think trading down, if you don't love a guy at 12, if you can get someone to come up for them, which is not a guarantee, by the way, because if you don't love anybody, who say other teams love anybody either, then yeah, I've always got interest in a trade down. I think that benefits you in the long run, having more shots at it. Steven again, how would you feel if we got Riley Leonard in the 5th, since we're more likely moving on from Trey Lance? It's fine. In general, and I promise you there will be 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 guys that like make me look dumb. I don't like this quarterback class. You know, Ward and Sanders are the top 2. They're not going to be in your conversation. I don't have first-round grades on them. I am lower on Jackson Dart than where he probably goes. I'm lower on almost probably every quarterback than where he ends up going. I've got a 6-ish on Leonard right now. He can run. He's got mobility. He's tough. That can be a good backup quarterback for you. Unless I see just a massive step forward in his just overall passing, especially his deep passing, I just don't see starter stuff there. When he misses it, it's ugly. I mean, go back and watch that NIU game. They're taking 4 shot downfield, and it's underthrown by like 15 yards. It's a horrible throw, and that kind of is stuck with me. But, you know, 5th round, 6th round, late 5th round, sure, that's fine. You know, I've got no issue spending one of your 18 5th-round picks on a quarterback. That's fine. That makes sense even. That's less value than what you invested on Trey Lance, and you get him for more years. I don't have many issues there, frankly. Craig, how do you replace Zach Martin? You know, free agency-wise, I look at someone like a Will Hernandez. Like, the cheaper option coming off an injury, knows Clayton Adams could be a stopgap starter for you. Internally, you can give Brock Hoffman a chance. You can give TJ Bashins. Let those 2 guys compete even. I'm not opposed to letting the internal young guys, the cheap guys, fight for that starting job. I'm fine with that. I don't think that's a problem, frankly. Because they got by this year without Zach Martin. So I actually feel better about not having Zach Martin with the decline in play and the injuries than I would have felt 2 years ago. And as I was very worried about that because you had no answer. Now you have options. And if the right value pick is there in whatever round, you can also draft one. That's why I want to fill all my needs. That way, you know, if like you fall in love with Tyler Booker or something, or if he falls to round 2, which seems unlikely, or you love Armand Membu and want to play him at guard, you can take that guy if you fill all your other needs. What is your concern level over losing Zach Martin? Scale it for it from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Keith the Man, switch Diggs to safety for next season. I don't think so. I like my safeties to be able to tackle, and that's not Diggs' game. Like, I don't want to have a bad tackling safety. I worry more about a bad tackling safety than do about a bad tackling corner. I think back to, this is way back when. I remember Leon Hall. Once he lost a step for the Bengals, good tackler. They put him at safety, and it worked. I don't think Diggs translates that great to safety. WDS, Tom, round 1, Genty. Round 2, Will Howard. I'm out. Sorry. I don't have Will Howard anywhere near a 2nd-round grade, and he's not going to play for 2 or 3 years, so I can't do that there. Round 3, backup DT. I like that one. Round 4, which I don't know how we get a 4th-round pick, but trade down, whatever, trade up, whatever. Backup QB, cool. Round 5, backup receiver. Round 6, backup running back. Round 7, backup right guard. Again, this is why I don't want to burn a 2nd-round pick on a quarterback. All of a sudden, I get a DT, but I don't address receiver. I'm kind of thin at other spots there. Dylan, what are the odds that Jones boys don't do anything? It's at least 50-50, right? It's tough to trust them. It would be really disheartening and frankly concerning if they didn't do anything, because they have so many needs and so much money available to spend. I know it says whatever $2 million right now, or $1 million, whatever, on the cap sites. You restructure Dak, you restructure Lamb, you're well beyond $50 million. You're approaching 60, 70, and you can free up more as needed. They have to do something. They have to. I guess they don't have to, but it would be really disappointing if they didn't, and frustrating, and I think would lead to even more apathy than there already is. I want to be excited about offseason moves for once. I haven't been that way in a long time. I want to be excited and convincing myself that the guy they paid maybe too much money was worth it, instead of like, mad they didn't do anything. You know? I'd have to spin zone it that way than spin zone, washed up Zeke Elliott. Well, now on that note, name a free agent you want the Cowboys to sign. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. And we'll get to Michael's super chat here in a second as well. Or 2 of them, actually. Can you go live for the Combine? TBD on going live. This is internet dependent. The combine internet is not good, so we'll see. We will have coverage, TBD on the live side. They've got the Schottenheimer press conference Thursday afternoon. That's going to be 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m., which we can't go live for because the internet will not work. It will not work. But we'll have coverage of it and have updates for you every single day there. So stay tuned for that one, my friend. Michael, bold prediction for the offseason. All right, the Hopium bold prediction is they re-sign Micah Parsons before free agency. That is my hopeful bold prediction. Do I have confidence in it? No, I don't. But it'd be fun, right? It'd be very fun. Other bold predictions. They add 3 defensive tackles this offseason. Three new ones. I'm going to cover my butt by saying undrafted free agents count there. And that might be 4 at that point. So it's a good question, though, Michael. I appreciate that. All right, free agent you guys want the Cowboys to sign. I love seeing the Poona Ford questions or answers in there. I think that's such a good idea. Like, that's just like, when we do the ideal free agency for the Cowboys, he's on there. I'm signing him as my nose guard. I can rotate him and Mozzie Smith and not bank on Mozzie taking a step forward, and then if he doesn't, being screwed at the spot. That's my mindset. Javon Hargrave, down with that one too. Especially if you lose Osa, just Ford, Hargrave, and a linebacker. That's not the worst idea. Joe says they do something in March. It's fun. Let's see. Any defensive tackle. Yeah, I mean you got to get help. Otherwise, you're in real trouble there. We've got even more Cowboys news for you coming out of Stephen Jones's conversations with the Dallas Morning News' David Moore. Obviously, broke down a bunch of this stuff on Monday, now doing again on Tuesday, including Trey Lance's future with the Dallas Cowboys. Seems like that one is done. Drafting a quarterback, if that's going to be the plan for the Cowboys, the future of DeMarcus Lawrence, and the claim from Stephen Jones. The Cowboys will be, quote-unquote, aggressive in free agency. So do you want them to be more aggressive? Or even just do more? I do. I assume every single person watching does. I don't see any reason why we can't set the record of like 7,000 likes on today's show. Because every single Cowboys fan should want them to do more in free agency. If that applies to you, like that video for me right now. Let's go to the claims of spending more. That is what Stephen Jones claims. That they'll be more aggressive in free agency. They'll spend more. They'll do more than what they've done in years past. He was asked, are you going to do more in free agency? Steve said, I think there's probably a good chance of that. Between what we lost last year and what we have free this year, I think that's part of it. Every year is its own year. We will be selectively strategic and aggressive. Maybe selectively is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on that particular quote. But I want to see you spend, Catboy. I want to see you sign 3 outside free agents that are more than $4 million a year. How awesome would that be? Now, I'll say this. I do not anticipate a very splashy signing in free agency. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I would be shocked. But if you can give me several, even just Eric Kendricks level moves, not Ronald Jones-esque moves, not Royce Freeman-esque moves, give me guys that are clear-cut starters, even if they are on one-year deals, that Phil needs. I can still draft someone if I like it, just like they did with Maurice Leafau this past season, and can help me out. That is doable, and that is needed, frankly, right now for this Cowboys organization. They simply don't have the bodies otherwise. They have to go do stuff like that. They have to. Otherwise, they're not serious about winning football games this upcoming season. Now, what is your confidence level in the Jones boys? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. Pin comment on today's show, so if the ad comes here on YouTube, it's fine. Take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. 1 to 10 is your scale. Let's talk to DeMarcus Lawrence's future. Stephen Jones was uncertain about what it was going to be, even kind of acknowledging potential retirements with Tank and what the future ends up looking like on that one, which I have question marks on that front. Stephen Jones saying, quote, we don't know that one yet. We're going to meet his agent here. Now, here, by the way, refers to the combine, just to be clear on that one. sometimes I wonder if that quote was like about Steven, because it wasn't clear reading the Dallas Morning News article, like, because David's mentioning retirement and wanting to play, and maybe it's wanting to play for the Cowboys in particular. That's certainly an option. I'll say this. I am glad the Cowboys have combine meetings planned. Hunker down at one of your restaurants, go get a back room at Prime, and just knock stuff out. Meet with Tank's agent and Micah's agent and Osa's and Rico Dowdle and Jourdan Lewis and all your guys, and go tamper a little bit. Just don't get caught doing it like everyone else does. Like, I don't know if Tank wants to retire, but I think it'd be a good thing if the if I don't see Steven and Jerry out there partying and having a good time and talking with media and stuff, good. It means they're working. I do wonder if this ends up being for Tank in particular I'm going to play elsewhere situation to wrap up my career. I think he's a good fit with what Eberflus wants to do, and as long as he's not crazy expensive, I've got a lot of interest there. He was really good in his 4 games this year, actually. He was on pace for one of his better years ever. I mean, he almost had as many sacks this year in 4 games as he had the past 3 years. That's good. Now, the injuries are a red flag at his age. I don't want to spend big money on him. If I can get him back on a 2-year deal, maybe, keep him, under at $10 million per year, give him incentives, for sacks and stuff, maybe if he's open to that, I'm down. He might not want to do that, and I get that in the end. But if I can bring back Tank, which means I probably lose Chauncey Golston, it's fine, then I feel good about my defensive end grouping, as long as they stay healthy this time around, which is a fair question mark. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to up to 1,000 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It is the best place to get in on the action in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. By the way, speaking of California and Texas, I am all in on trigger phrase there, I guess, and trigger conversation for Mavs fans on Luka revenge game against Dallas on Tuesday night. I just, come on. That's a no-brainer for me. I'll do the flex play here on this as well because I don't want to. If I get one wrong, I still cash out, and that's always valuable. By the way, Prize Picks invented the flex play. You can still double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS over at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Let's talk Trey Lance then. Stephen Jones sure made it sound like his time in Dallas was over after 2 years and a wasted 4th-round pick. Stevens, we took a shot at Trey and wanted to do that. We think the world of him. But us having Dak signed up for the long term, I think he's probably going to be looking for something different, which I get. I don't think Lance wants to be stuck as just a backup. He'd like to try to find a better chance somewhere else. I just wonder, though, what his market's going to be. He hasn't played a lot. The preseason is where he got most of his run, outside of 1 game this year. He has not played a lot of real snaps, and he hasn't been that great when he's played. He's kind of still the mystery box prospect in the end. After all these years, Trey Lance, who hasn't turned 25 yet, who is still younger than some prospects in this upcoming NFL draft, real statement, by the way, is still an unknown. So if I were Lance, I would strongly consider going to the UFL. And I would showcase my abilities. I try to make some splash. I would dominate a lower level of competition. And then maybe I boost my value in the open market. The timing's unusual. The timing's not great. I admit that. But that might be better long term. And maybe you can latch on somewhere on a 1-year deal. And then you have all that great UFL performance and tape. And you can cash in at some point later on. Maybe you get a bit more guaranteed money. You boost your value. Teams maybe keep a backup spot open for you. In a not great free agency and draft class, I don't hate that idea for Chance, even though it is kind of unique there. Now, we have Cowboys videos for you all year long. Do not miss out. Free Cowboys videos, oftentimes multiple times per day. Hit that sub button for me right now. So let's talk drafting a quarterback then, because that is what Stephen Jones also expressed interest in doing in this year's NFL draft. Steven said this, I think one of our goals is to get a young QB in the draft. I don't know where that's going to be. Now, of note, as part of the Dallas Morning News article on this, David Moore mentioned that Brian Schottenheimer and quarterbacks coach Steve Shimko want to do this, that they want to find a young QB to develop and grow, which, by the way, if you're looking for a young QB to develop and grow, age-wise, there's not that much of a difference than some of the guys coming out and Trey Lance. He's 2 years older than Riley Leonard, just as an example. So that might indicate to me, kind of reading tea leaves, that maybe the coaching staff didn't love, just didn't love the overall play of Trey Lance. And they want to go get younger and also cheaper because it's a 4-year contract with likely a day 3 pick. And even though in general, I hate this quarterback class. I don't think it's good. I've got real concerns. I just don't believe in very many of them, especially not your day 3 guys. One will probably be good. Maybe you can identify him and get lucky and develop him properly. But I have no issue spending one of your 5, whatever it is, it's 4, one or 3, one of your multitude of 5th-round picks on a QB on day 3. That's fine. That's fine value. The upside is worth it. You can carry 3 guys anyway. You almost want to carry 3 guys. I don't have any issues with that. That's fine. I'm not even call that a wasted pick because the hit rate is so low at that point anyway, especially in this particular class. I've got little issues doing that. Who that is, I don't know. I assume Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart are all gone at minimum. And I would not be surprised if by the time we get to the 5th round, maybe Will Howard is gone, Quinn Ewers is gone, who I don't love anyway. Tyler Shuck might be gone there. Maybe Kyle McCord falls. Who knows? Maybe Dylan Gabriel's there. Riley Leonard, Curtis Rourke out of Indiana, Max Brosmer. It's again, I don't love the class, but if you want to spend a 5th-round pick on someone to try to develop and see how that comes along, and even if you develop into a backup, that's actually good value for what you're getting in a 5th-round pick. So I don't have issues there. Just don't spend an early one because this quarterback class is not worth it for me. So do you want to draft a quarterback this year? Y for yes, N for no. Just don't force the pick. Get the value you want. Otherwise, don't force picks. The Cowboys are bad doing that. Y for yes, N for no in the comments section of today's show. One more note here on Cooper Rush. Stephen Jones also said that he'd like to retain Rush this offseason at the right price. ATRP, the famous or preferred buzzword abbreviation for the Cowboys. Steven's saying, how much we think of Cooper? We just don't know what he's going to cost. When we're paying Dak, we're paying him. Unfortunately, we do have to go cheap there. Which, again, he's not wrong. Look around the NFL. It's how all these teams do it. The Chiefs aren't paying Carson Wentz anything behind Patrick Mahomes, And I do think Rush will probably be cheap. He is who he is. I have a tough time seeing a ton of interest in him. And if not, okay, I'll take my future comp pick, and I can ride with Will Grier if I really want to, or I can draft somebody, or I can sign a cheaper option. Rush is a game manager. He does a fine job. The injury concerns I have for Dak Prescott are very real. That is actually one of my biggest concerns in general when it comes to Dak is him staying healthy. Rush is who he is. He's going to be 60% and can't push the ball downfield very well. Isn't a great athlete. Had a fumbling issue too. If you lose him, I'm not going to be upset by it. He's not done the best work against the teams you have to be like Philadelphia's been really bad with him. So if he leaves, okay. Maybe it's Grier and a draft pick. Maybe it's a free agent signing and a draft pick and Grier. Whatever, that's fine. I'm not going to lose sleep over the future of Cooper Rush in the end. So will Dallas end up re-signing Osa Odighizuwa? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. And the pinned poll as well. It is currently 62% voting yes, and then 63% now voting yes. Chris B, aggressive, a.k.a. 2 older vets, more than last year. It's progress. 2 starting caliber vets. How about that? I have to see it. I remember 2 years ago it was the Cowboys are working on something big, and then that didn't happen. Or maybe that was 2 years ago. Last year was all in. okay, let's see. I remember last year, I was like, they're working on something big. And I asked every person I could find in the comment, like, they're working on anything? And everyone was like, no, that's not happening. Like, okay, that's what I thought. Don't use all in this year, Jerry, when you sit on the bus, which I'm sure I will not be invited to because that might not go over well from their perspective. All right, don't miss out on our Combine coverage, though. The Brian Start press conference on Thursday. Normally they're on Monday, Tuesday. He's doing Thursday, which I can't ever recall happening. But that's what we're doing this year. So delayed press conference there for Shoddy. We will have coverage for you here. We'll have reaction to it, everything else. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV.